one of my favorite YouTube partners, and it's not just because he does a lot of, well, besides Lamar. And it's not just because he's makes videos that make fun of his kids and does a lot of fart jokes. But he's actually a pretty smart guy, as you might not believe if you watch a lot of his videos. But he's very brand savvy. He understands marketing. So he brings a unique perspective to being a YouTube partner. So we have Nalts, Kevin Nalty. Come on up.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate that. Note that she gave that back. Hey, how about YouTube for sponsoring independent artists all over the country? And not giving up on that even if they decide to buy Hulu. Keeping the amateur creator at the forefront, regardless if you try to buy Hulu. I have no information about whether they're going to buy Hulu or not. Who cares? I mean, do we really think we're going to lose share to Mighty Mouse episodes? Or Alf? All right, so I can go a lot of different directions. I was thinking, I look back at a presentation I did in New York for the Next Up partners, and I swear I think I haven't done pot in a long time, but it looked like I was stoned when I wrote it because it was all about lighting the fire within. It was really touchy-feely. So I was going to actually come here and see how long I could go with a straight face, basically doing a Gordon Gekko, sell out your channel, do it for the money, and see if anybody bought into it. But I didn't have the courage. So I can go the things I wish I knew early in the partner. But a lot of you guys have been at it for a while, so I feel like that might be 101, and you guys are more in the advanced level. Or I could go the route of interesting things that I picked up watching people who persist over long, as opposed to short, flaming, brightly lit but brightly expiring stars. Or one thing I probably do better than others is talk about how to, market yourselves and to increase your revenue beyond YouTube earnings. So anybody want to direct me? You are the customer. Okay. Okay, so let's say that you were in this just for the money. And I have admitted for a long time, my book, Beyond Viral, sets the record straight. I was making videos long before YouTube, but I began to search for a place to monetize, knowing that online video was starting to become pervasive. And I went to Rever, a site that did revenue sharing before YouTube. And so I was a little bit late to the YouTube game, at least by the standards at the time. But then I started to get into YouTube and I started getting into the comments and everything. I was like, wow, this is actually a lot more interesting than just the money. And it wouldn't be years until finally YouTube started to share profits. Thank you, YouTube. But if I learned anything in that process, it was that the money, while being the initial spark, is not a sustaining variable. So two things, if you haven't realized already, is that there's no amount of money you can get from YouTube that will fill the empty bowl of your lives. Nor is there any number of subscribers. Am I right, Wheezy? Have you reached a point yet where you feel fulfilled?
I need more subscribers.
Yeah. It's like having a giant hole in your stomach. You can keep eating, but it's just going to spill onto the floor. So let's just get that out in the open. That being said, it sure is a nice thing to be able to do what you love and also sustain yourself. And I'm so happy for people that were like eating ramen noodles. I love just Mr. Guitar Man. I mean, I've created this story. It's based on absolutely no fact. But he did my theme song at a time when he was living in a car eating ramen noodles, eating dog leftovers. Every time I tell it, it gets worse. He's begging for money. And now, what, 1 million, 2 million? Easily, right? He was burning $100 bills. That's his next animation video, is him just lighting $100 bills on fire. It's stop action, though. It's going to rock. So there's hope for all of us. But if you pursue money, you're far less likely to, I think, be more vibrant than if you are doing it because of a fire within. Okay, I'm not going to no more touchy-feely stuff. So how do we make money? We can just continue to post videos and continue to grow our audience and let YouTube do that for us, which is great, and that's AdSense. And there are factors in our control that can increase what we get, even if we have nothing to do with the ad, right? So YouTube and the client set the price. But there are some things we can do that can make us, besides get more views. That's one way. The other is kind of the content we make as advertisers are getting smarter and smarter about the audiences they're targeting. And then another way is sort of the audience that you're speaking to, which, may be an audience that's highly valuable to a client, a customer, and may not be. So my day job is I'm a marketer. And so I have a lot to do with the sort of spend on digital advertising. And I don't advertise on YouTube because I'm targeting such a tiny little niche. But that time will change. And it could change with you. If you can focus in on a specific niche that an advertiser wants that's really valuable, it doesn't matter if you have several 100,000 subscribers because it's about the quality of that audience. So if you want to become another Ray William Johnson, you could do that. Or you could say, you know what, I'm going to go after this profile. So I would think about that. If you can line up what you like to do with a specific audience that has an unmet need with a marketplace where advertisers want to reach, you've got a perfect storm. And it could be the left-handed lesbian cooking show. I just came up with that. God, I love that. Somebody park that. Ben, can you park the left-handed, is that beyond the character restraints of a username? I love that. That was right. I didn't even filter that. That did not go through my executive brain. That came right out of the dino brain back here. So, number one, AdSense. But then you ask yourself, can I be in greater control of my destiny? And the answer, Nalts says yes, you can. But it really depends on if you want to go that route. And there are people that I know that reach out to specific small companies or large companies, et cetera, and they can go in. But I'm guessing most of us aren't, or maybe I'm wrong. Are you prone to reaching out to an advertiser? Is that something that would interest you? Some, maybe? All right, so let's look at it on a continuum. Passive income is creation of content, letting YouTube monetize it. The most active income would be pursuit of a specific advertiser. But there are lots of little steps in between for those of us that don't have the gumptions to call up, Kraft and say, hey, sponsor me. And by the way, I would advise some caution on that because it's hard to take somebody who's a marketer and get them to the point where they see your value. I saw it early on as a marketer and as a creator because when I got a call from the product director of Mentos and he wanted to give me a $1,000 check to make a Mentos video, I was like, you're kidding me. Like, this is just a hobby for me, and I'm going to get a $1,000 check. But I also know as a marketer, that's a rounding error. So you're worth a lot more than you realize. So I would suggest as you get further into it, if you decide to go the route of direct advertiser, you're probably, unless you're savvy, you're probably going to be your own worst agent because you will invariably sell yourself for less than you're worth because you will be affected by such things as, wow, that didn't take very long, or wow, this didn't cost me much money. But you ought not to be thinking about that. You ought to be thinking about what's the value to the advertiser and protecting your audience. Because, the rule in 10, 1 in 10, like if you're advertising more often than that, you start to really fatigue your audience. So that was initially a concern. I was one of the first people to start whoring out. And I was just so transparently. There were others that were kind of working their products into product placement. I was always very clear. I'm getting paid for this video. So if you see me holding a Starbucks cup in the next video, and I'm not saying so, I'm just holding a Starbucks cup. It's not a product placement for delicious Starbucks Frappuccinos. And they're via coffee, which is instant and really works a lot better than hotel coffee. So transparency, obviously, very important. So get an agent or set yourself free of anything that might hold you down in terms of your ability to represent because you're worth a lot. You are communicating with an audience. They like you. You have influence over them. You can use it for good or evil, but protect them from too much evil. It's okay to occasionally shout out a brand if you're into it, but I have done at least one and maybe two sponsored deals that I didn't want to do. And, it will suck your will to live. to pimp out something you don't believe in. So it's much more natural. And okay, power of no. And I've seen it time and time again. Say no to the startup that wants to give you some obscure stock or something promise and borrow your channel. No, because the power to say no, it will, if they're serious, they will come back with better terms. And I've seen Michael Buckley. I'll hold his example. I won't name the intermediary. He said no, and the deal doubled for him. And then he said yes. So you may walk, you may lose a few things, but that is exercise your power to say no, especially to weird stuff. And you'll start to detect weird from real. So what's real? If YouTube calls you up and says we've got Kodak as a sponsor, that's real. If somebody reaches out to you and they, it sounds a little bit more articulate than the Nigerian scam, say no, ignore it. It doesn't mean you have to pull the Ray William Johnson. I'm not interested in any business inquiries, but definitely have your filter on. Okay, so now we've talked about YouTube, passive. Active is actually reaching out to sponsors. There are two other areas. One is the intermediaries. So who knows of an intermediary that plays in this space? Anybody want to shout a name? Anybody reached out to you on behalf of an advertiser?
Station.
The station. So I think you raise a good point, too, because the station can come in the form of a content aggregation, if you will, like the station, where they want to spread their reach and get other people involved. It might come in the form of an intermediary that stands between the brand and the creators, and they facilitate that process. But the beauty about them is that presumably they've qualified the customer, because you will spend a lot of time trying to prove your worth to somebody that's not savvy on this. They'll ask you a million questions. What do you think the click-through rate? And can I just pay you for every person that clicks and buys? Don't do that. It's a great awareness medium, but it's not a great direct response medium. How many people have made money on merchandising that has eclipsed their ad revenue from YouTube? So you've made more in merchandising.
I haven't made a lot of ad revenue.
Okay. But you made non-trivial money on merchandising? I mean, because to me, I found that to be horrific, So God bless the Cafe Press, District Lines, et cetera, but unless you really want to play in the merchandise game and come up with stuff that, I did see somebody in my little humble town in Pennsylvania wearing a trippy, Internet Kill TV shirt. And I did see Annoying Orange in what's that little clothing store? What? Yeah, Hot Topic. I always go in there. Do they have a Wheezy Waiter shirt yet?
They don't.
I bought a blue Wheezy Waiter shirt. Yeah, I like the lightning. Yeah, I know. It doesn't make my biceps look really strong. I was wondering if you could come up with a long sleeve with padding.
Well, the goal is to make everyone else look better than me.
Oh, okay. Well, that worked. Yeah. All you need to do is go with like a really nasty orange color that will also make me look pale as well as weak. So take it from Uncle Nalts that merchandising can be a horrific waste of time. So again, we talked about the YouTube AdSense passive money, and we talked about a few ways. I did blog on Will Video for Food about some content areas that are highest on a cost per, on a CPM basis, cost per reach, not a click-through basis. So there's certain topics that are sought after, and they wouldn't surprise you, right? Like retail, electronics, how-to, et cetera. Were they what? You're questioning the validity of it. Well, they were directly off. I went in as a buyer onto YouTube and saw ranges, and I took the caps of those ranges. But the problem is that's really not the best money. The better money for us as creators are something more obnoxious than CPM, right? The pre-roll, the in-vid, the soon-to-be insert an ad in the middle of the video. But the more you can integrate the product into the show, the more valuable it is to the advertiser, and that's what the sponsored video is about. It's not just about product placement, but integration. I saw a great example of this. Who's the guy that does the Happy Slip like, family? No. He mocks it. He pretends to be the wife, the mom, the kid. He's got a little ponytail, sits on the end. Yeah. So he did a recent one with like Verizon Plug, and it was a good product placement, because it was basically the father is playing, Trivial Pursuit from the from his brain, and the sort of emo loser son, is punching in his Verizon. So that was like nicely integrated into a theme that he's already gotten, and as evidenced by the fact, I think 4 thumbs down and almost all the rest were thumbs up. So that's success. Even for a relatively small number of people, 20,000, I would be very happy about that if I was Verizon, because that's going to get yourself imbued into the mindset of the audience better than ads alone. It's when you're trying to reach people, it's good to have frequency, but it's also good to put some meaning into it and make yourself relevant in the content. And the example is, you guys watch American Idol. The Coke media buyers told me they'd love to have just the Coke cup, right? They'd love to just buy the Coke cup and the Coke green room. But obviously Fox requires them also to drop 30 seconds in as well as part of a bundled deal. But that in-show thing is really powerful. When you see Simon or whoever now drinking out of the Coke, your subconscious is busy processing, and the next time you see a Coke sign, whether you realize it or not, you love that delicious sweet taste of Coke. A friend of mine is an interactive guy, Coke. Yeah, hold it up. Hold it up for Mike Donnelly, digital guy, Coke. So anyway, certain content areas you can focus on. Find your intermediaries. I didn't finish on that, but it's the station, it's hit views, it's mechanism or whatever. And just if you see somebody else that gets a sponsored video, ask them where they got it. And, make yourself available, because don't assume that we marketers are savvy enough to find you. We're not. And we're dealing with really dumb media buyers. Really dumb media buyers. Have you ever met a smart media buyer? Okay, occasionally. Occasionally you get a strategic media buyer. Now, I say dumb, but they're not as much dumb as this is new. This is new and difficult to buy, right? Otherwise, we'd be exploding. And the projections are awesome, by the way. So even if you didn't grow your audience, the monetization of your content is only going to get better. But it's not nearly as easy to buy as what media buyers are used to buying. It's very easy to buy, and they know what they're getting when they buy television. They know what they're getting when they buy paid search. And to some degree, they know what they're buying when they buy digital display ads. But when you're talking about in-video ads and product sponsors, the challenge is, number one, it's new. Number two, it's difficult to scale. Number three, it's a little bit harder to work these deals out. But there can be no question it's higher impact. And so the intermediaries are useful to that. Lamar, question?
Aren't these intermediaries a little scary? Like, I get an email from Machinima, and
Yeah.
that sounds good. They give a certain amount of CPM, but it's a 2-year contract.
Right.
That locks you in, and they have
No, don't lock. So I've seen different Machinima deals, but I'd be very hesitant about capping. I had somebody once offer me to pay me a fixed amount to move my audience off YouTube. And it was very easy to say no to that, because I knew that it was not feasible. But I also didn't like the idea of, don't do anything that's going to set a ceiling. This is a bad time to set a ceiling on your earnings per view, And when you look at those deals, it's always good to have a dance before you get married. So that could be, you know what I mean? Like, get to know each other, make sure they pay their bills on time, because intermediaries are not always good at that, and sometimes it's not their fault. Sometimes they have to wait for the advertiser to pay up, which is on the completion of the program. They have to process it and get it and that stinks. I mean, when I've worked with these intermediaries, I'm like, look, figure out a model, get paid on front. When I buy a television campaign, a radio campaign, or a newspaper campaign, I don't wait till that campaign's done to pay the advertiser. I pay them up front. So you want to get paid up front, right? Because it's no fun to be waiting months and months and months for one of these product deals, and that can happen. It kills you. Other questions? Is this useful? It's not a value, it's just a prerequisite. It's just sort of built into media buying. Like, for example, if I'm buying, if I want to be in the January books, I have to pay in December. And that's because they need, they've mandated that. So there's no incremental value. If anything, it's bad from a cash flow perspective.
Where do you find these people that buy your media on YouTube?
Well, okay, so if they're buying traditional media, i.e. buying display, just let them work with YouTube and, all's well. But if you want to be entrepreneurial and you have a niche content that you know is useful to an advertiser, you can do that. The other thing, too, is it doesn't always have to be a big sponsored paid deal. Uncle Sam's not crazy about this, but barter system is awesome. I mean, there's no reason you couldn't go to a hotel resort that you want to go to, explain that you have a decent-sized audience, and guarantee them, because you can, to plus or minus something. You kind of know what your average views get. They're going to get more views through you than they're going to get on their own stupid produced video, right? You know that. So you can make that, you can make that statement. And they may or may not get that. It's difficult to get somebody in that mindset, but if you're right, and the right person is not necessarily the media buyer. It's not necessarily the public relations agency. The higher up you get, the better. And they'll either get it or not. But you can work out trades, too, that are often nice. And just be transparent about it. Thank you to Club Med for, putting me up for free, that kind of thing. Charlie had a question? No? You were just giving me the 5-minute. Who's next? Who's going to follow me? Wheezy? Because we had an agreement, too, that Todd's going to come in. Wheezy was going to talk sort of about all the things you want to do to keep an audience.
I am.
Yeah, and then, no, you're not talking anymore? I was volunteering you. They all want to hear from Wheezy Wazer. They all want to hear, they don't want to hear from Nalts. Nalts is so 10 minutes ago. I'm so Renetto. They want to hear from Wheezy about building an audience. That would be a great topic for you. Because you've created nomenclature, you've got a great sort of brand audience connection, and I could tell you how to exploit it, but he could tell you how to build it. Go ahead.
So I know you said we're all
Yeah.
You've been asked, what do you think you should get paid?
No, yeah, so don't ever answer that question. Well, you could do it two ways. Okay, so that's actually kind of arrogant to say that the buyer has to set the price. So just come up with something that what I typically charge is. Doesn't have to be true. And be fair about it. And give them some guarantees, It's a lot easier to say. Or the other thing you could do is you could say, other people that have the audience size I do charge $2 to $10 grand per sponsored video. However, if you're willing to work with me, give me $1,000, vacation package, and I'll do a sponsored video for you. They don't really know that, but what they won't know what the fair market price should be. But as long as you're getting them decent quality of views, and they don't see you as some wacko, then it's a pretty safe spend. And it's a drop. Unless you're a tiny little entrepreneurial company, the amount that it can change your life is a rounding error on a media spend, right? So that you can take advantage of. Go ahead.
Are there any tips that you can give us that, how to go out and approach these media buyers?
Well, I wouldn't try to get to media buyers. I'd go to aggregators or third party. Like I'd go to the intermediaries. So you find out somebody else is going to sponsor a video. Who'd you cut that through? If it was YouTube, it's harder to sort of get yourself into the YouTube queue because they're going to be more selecting the top people, whatever. But you find these middlemen, and you introduce yourself and your content, and allow them to represent you. Hopefully not exclusively, because that stinks too. I mean, there are people that require exclusivity. We're going to represent you. You can only get deals through us. And then you're like, what happens if I get sponsored? Get a sponsorship opportunity on my own or whatever. But if I were to have the instincts to go after somebody, I would go after, kind of a mid-tier company, not one that's mired in bureaucracy, but also not a startup, and say, look, send me some free product, give me a free vacation, or pay me a nominal amount, and don't waste too much time. Like they'll either be into it or they won't, and you probably won't change your mind terribly. Like they'll either say, yeah, got it, or you'll spend 9 months trying to convince them something, and they'll ask you to, pay you on a per-click basis, and
When you have made a video that has product placement or is endorsing something, do you have to run it by the person who's paying for it prior to
Yeah.
putting it on the
So I think it's fair for us to give the marketer a chance to see the content. What I don't think is fair is if I, the marketer, start to meddle, right? And that's difficult for me as a marketer because remember, everything else I do is I contract with an agency or production company. I tell them exactly what I want. We test it through market research, and we run with it. So this notion of letting go is extremely difficult for marketers. But you need to own the content because you know your audience, you know what you can get away with, you know what's going to tank or not. So I try to beg when I speak to marketing agents, let go. Let them, they know they all know how to work it in more delicately. Look at it to make sure that you're not, I mean, you don't want to be seen in an unfair light, or there may be certain things that, like, it's very much our instinct as creators to go competition. So, like, say, for example, pick a product. What? What? Okay, Timex. So, like, instinctively, we'd be like, this is better than Sanyo, or, or forget the iPad, a clock, we're all using. You want to have it on your wrist. And generally, marketers don't like to advertise against. So those are the things that you probably want to be open to discussion with. And you don't want to be a jerk either, because especially if you're dealing with an intermediary, if you push back too many times, they're going to be like, okay, that person's high maintenance. But the same thing is, you're kind of responsible for your audience. And so there have been times where I've been asked to be too aggressive, work in certain copy, and keep it very, very specific on this. And when I work with agencies or brands, I tell them, keep the creative brief really open and let the creator do what they're good at doing. Otherwise, you're just going to see it. I mean, if somebody's doing a promotion and they're on the fourth take because the there's no passion. Yeah? Tell me how I'm doing on time, too, Ben, or what do you got? 2 more minutes? One? Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead. If it's on your mind, it's on others.
I've got a question about, say if I get approached by somebody that wants me to make a local video, local advertising.
You mean like Rhett and Link, Commercial Kings?
Yeah, something like that, but not to that point.
All right.
With an audience like mine, which is not very big.
Don't do local. Don't sign on. I said no to about 5 different companies that were local. You can't satisfy a local advertiser, period. Say no. Or come up with a different way to work with them. Maybe it's look, I know YouTube, and let me understand what you're trying to do, and we create a channel for you. But the problem is your audience is not targeted to a locality. So if it's a digital, if you can buy digitally, or if it's a general broad brand, you can play. But I don't think there's anybody in here who could say, my audience is focused on this region and therefore I can deliver. So you will invariably upset them. Tell me more. I mean, it's a debate.
We'll just say this local grocery store
Yeah.
where I live has asked me to make something for them, so they will take that video off and then embed it on whatever they want to do.
Bingo. Okay, so that's a different model, and I've done a couple of those. I don't particularly like them because they end up, so if you are doing a video for then you have right of refusal. You can say, no, we don't want to take it that direction. As soon as you do the latter model, you become a production company for hire. And so therefore, you kind of make the video at their own specs. And it'll start to suck. But you're talking about something very differently, whereby you are the creator, they are the distributor. And that's okay, because you know the medium better. So you can advise them on how to be more natural and less awkward and less like a 30-second, 60-second spot. So don't underestimate your ability to actually help them create something that's not going to suck online. But see the. And then let them run with it. But the problem is what they'll do is they'll pay you, and they won't get any views on it, and or maybe they will, but they won't get that, because the power you have is this 1-2 punch. You've got a regular audience, and you've got creative instincts. So as soon as you pull one of those, you bifurcate one of those, it's not as good as the sum of its whole. The best power you have for advertisers is combining those, and the best advertiser is one that sees the merit of brand awareness as opposed to direct response. If you're held accountable to how many people click through to this website to purchase this product, you better be selling something for $500 or more, because 1% is going to click, of that 1% is going to buy. And I have seen it work. Mr. Safety did a TiVo spot. I got 1 million views, and I did backward math and figured out that if the conversion rate was, 0.000 whatever, it still broke even. But in general, you're better off with companies that appreciate brand awareness as opposed to direct response. All right, one more.
On my channel, we do more like giveaways, like we'll do something and then we'll try it out and give one away. And I feel like that way I'm not missing out my applicants.
Yeah.
I mean, so how do you give tickets to what you're talking about without giving your
I think it's fair. I think it's great that you're offering the product to the audience. I think it's also fair for you to command something for that. So, for example, if somebody was to come to me with 5 flip cams, I could just say, okay, I'm going to give away 5 flip cams. I could keep 2, which I'd feel like a jerk. Or I could say, give me a check, and then I'll give out 5 flip cams, right? And remember that that's a fair request. It's a win-win-win, right? The audience, gets some flip cams. Remember, the cost of goods sold for most of the stuff you're giving away is a fraction of what the retail value is. So it's not any big deal. Now, what I think is going to be interesting is I think that I can't believe that companies aren't sending you guys. If I was in charge of a new watch, a new product, I'd be getting in on every one of you. I'd be giving you more free crap than you knew what to do with. Because you'd wear it, right? And that would be huge awareness. And why people aren't showing up to these events and giving away free tchotchke to you, you're like a built-in. And the beautiful thing is, unlike the tech, let's say you're giving away free watches, unlike the guy that owns the blog about watches, he can't favor one watch. He loses his object. You can. Your audience isn't looking to you for advice on watches. Go ahead.
So to follow up with what you just said, why don't more marketers inundate us with stuff?
Just haven't gotten it yet. We'll get there. We'll get to the point where you're like at the Oscars and this event, there's somebody at the door of this event shoving brands on your head. We will get there. Yeah, I mean, if you're making a fashion accessory and you're not giving it to these two, I don't even know if you have a fashion channel. I just looked at your thumbnail in real life. One last one. One last one.
With product placement and giving away stuff and you wearing it and everything, would that be considered a paid advertisement for that company?
I think you want to be transparent. I mean, I think if it's a T-shirt or whatever, who cares? But, if they're starting to backdoor stuff, you ought to disclaim that you're, and it doesn't have to be, I am getting endorsed by, I'm getting paid for. You just say thank you. That usually satisfies most.
So we're gonna have you stay, and since Wheezy's here, we're gonna have you interview Wheezy.
Oh, this is fun!
And one quick comment to your question: if somebody gives you something to make a video about it, you do have to disclose that to the FCC. And this isn't a YouTube rule, and we do have a little checkbox saying this was a paid product placement. Because what happens is the FCC has a requirement for any bloggers, not just video. If you receive material compensation to make a video, you need to disclose it.
And there are hashtags if you're on Twitter for that disclosure. And then, don't put a sponsored video up and not forget to check that box. Because you think about it. If you're doing the Timex spot and I'm selling Rolexes and I see my ad on your Timex video, I'm going to be pissed.
Yep.
Right? So that you want to make sure you show them some respect of not having your sponsor get counter-advertised.
Right. So the paid placement box is just for us, for YouTube to know. You can accept money, you can accept things to make videos. We don't care. But the FCC has legal requirements that they want anyone to disclose that they got money or things in order to make a video. So, to keep yourself and the advertiser who's sponsoring your videos out of trouble, you need to disclose that. I'm not an attorney, so I can't tell you how to, but just keep that in mind.
And you owe it to your audience, too, because you don't want them to think that you're shilling.
Or demand to be paid in cash. So
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
no money trail. Yeah.
Or favors. Go ahead.
What if we already made a video and we didn't do that? Is there a way to go back?
Yeah, just go in the description. I mean, I went back and I unchecked all the boxes, made sure it was clear that it's sponsored for any that I hadn't, and then I just put a notation in there. Or you could put an annotation again. Hey, thanks to such and such. They're usually not prescriptive on. Well, there is when I don't know, some partner accounts may have it or not, but when you're collecting monetize, you can check a box that says this is a paid placement.